Hello, Zyy'nai of planet Earth. My name is Zyy'nai, and in this episode we're going to be talking about physiological cues for the Zyy'nai. These are the cues that you give off that other people can read that let them know that you're a Zyy'nai, that you can see in yourself and being like, oh, I'm totally a Zyy'nai. Some basics is that your powers, when they're doing what they do, they give off signals, the way that you move your head, the way you move your eyes, the way you gesture, the way you articulate, the natural aspects to them, the way they change aspects and tone. All of this has to do with what's going on inside your psyche. So the powers, they do activity inward, but this also gives them external manifestations. The powers don't just give off signals, they give off signals based on the particular way that they're being used, but more importantly, how they're oriented in the psyche. We talked earlier about how the Z of the Zyy'nai is unique because out of all other mojo, the Zyy'nai is the only mojo that has Z as a first-ranked power that is also combined with Nai in a compound relationship. That makes the signals that it gives off unique. So as a Zyy'nai, you have 4 powers, but they are in a unique hierarchy. So as you use them, they will give off signals that no other mojo would give off. Other mojos might have Z, Nai, V, and Zai, but they don't have them in the unique hierarchy and combination that you do. So they won't give the kind of momentum and modulation that they do for you. So what should be paid attention to is the energy levels that you give off and just the general cues that come from the use of your powers. Let's start with momentum and modulation. Momentum, as we talked about before, gives you energy. Z and Nai are your momentum powers. But momentum is also a cue because as you use your momentum powers, then there's going to be a notable increase in energy, confidence, comfortability, and those who are trained to be able to read mojo can read on you this increase in energy, confidence, and comfortability. So momentum is both a phenomenon that's happening in your psyche, and it's also a cue that can be read. The same is true with modulation. There are terms that we use a lot: natural state and altered state. One thing you'll hear as we go over cues is that often with powers that are momentum, you will hear them referred to as natural state because some cues are cues that any mojo can do, but will look the way that it does based on that mojo's design. Anything that is related to Z and Nai for the Zyy'nai is going to give momentum, and therefore it's going to be natural state. V and Zai are your modulation powers, which means they're going to reduce or curb your energy. And moves that are based on either of these powers will have an altered state quality to them because they're modulation. So let's get into your powers. Your first power is Z. Z is an articulator power, so anytime you articulate, anytime you jut your head forward, anytime you are doing active listening, all of these you are doing Z to pull off these maneuvers. And so as you do them, for example, as you articulate, you are also going to be doing something called cool articulation. See, the way Z works, it comes with a neutralizing of expression as you get into Z. So Z articulates coolly, and Z's unique kind of neutralizing mode of expression is called anvil. So anvil is coming with articulation, it's coming with the jutting forward, and it's coming with the active listening. For the Zyy'nai, your Z is going to be unique because Z is your source power. So it's not just in your element, it's hella in your element, it's super in your element. So this is major momentum for you. So the Z is leading the train of your entire cognitive configuration. So that's going to be something that's very distinct to notice as you see your Z cues in yourself. Also, Z is in a compound relationship with your minor momentum power, your tandem power, which is Nai. So the Z will be unique because it is somewhat infused with the cunning signals of Nai that we'll talk about in a second, and also that it is outranking the Nai. Your second or tandem ranked power is Nai. Nai gives you the signal of cunning eyes, and you're going to notice that cunning eyes signal accentuated when you disengage from the environment and your eyes drift to the left, when you tilt your head to the left, and when you narrow your eyes and peer them down at the subject or whatever you're looking at. Your Nai is going to be unique to you as a Zyy'nai because it is minor momentum. So when you're doing your Nai, then it is in your element. It's minor momentum, so it's not as in your element as Z, but it is still in your element. and because of the fact that it has a compound relationship with Z. But the Nai is below Z, so the Z signal is still going to overtake the Nai. Your third ranked or offside power is V. Your V, it's your stimulus register power, so you're going to see V activated when you do things like your eyes widen, perking up the eyes, when your brow lifts, and when your carriage lifts. It's going to come with the laser-eyed signal of V. Now, this laser-eyed signal is minor modulation for you, and so it's going to actually cost a bit more of an effort to do. It's going to curb your energy a bit, since it's modulation. It's not going to be as much as your minor modulation of Zyy'nai, which we'll talk a bit more in a second, but it will still tax your system to a certain degree. So that's one of the reasons why it's going to be unique to you as a Zyy'nai, but also because of the fact that it has a compound relationship with Zyy'nai, and so the signals are somewhat infused, although the V is above your Zyy'nai, and that's something that can be read. And then your fourth ranked or polar power is Zyy'nai. Zyy'nai, you will note its use when you do things such as you disengage from the environment and your eyes drift to the right head tilts, or also right shrugs to the right. And the quality that's going to come with your use of Zyy'nai is going to be point emotive expression. And this is because you're doing warm resonating on the right. In addition to that, the kind of emotive expression that does come with Zyy'nai is going to be unaware emotive expression, meaning this expressioning is simply an authentic representation of how you're resonating. And it is unlike Zhi in the way that Zhi is actually aware of social dynamics and is actually targeting their values-based power in order to move people in a certain way. Zyy'nai doesn't do that. It's unaware of those dynamics. And thus it simply kind of authentically reflects how it's resonating, and it isn't actually done intentionally. Zyy'nai resonating is something that can also be heard in the voice, and you will notice that there's a certain tonal quality to it that represents the point spectrum of Zyy'nai. And this tonal quality is the joyous to mournful spectrum. Your Zyy'nai is unique to you as a Zyy'nai because of the fact that it is ranked fourth, so it's your polar power, and you'll notice that there's a kind of a localized nature to it, which we'll talk about more in a second when we talk about logic-based and values-based, but also because of the fact that it has a compound relationship with your V, so there is also kind of a visceral quality to it as well. Those are all first gear cues. Now let's get into some second gear cues. The second gear cues all have to do with the energy fields that you give off. If you remember from the human design episode, as a Zyy'nai, you are a directive mojo. And this shows physiologically in the way that you gesture. When it comes to gesturing, there are two schools of gesturing styles. Let's start with yang gesturing. Yang gesturing, the characteristics are palms facing outward. They are further away from the body and more outward, pushing outward into common space. They have more of a kind of a director style quality to the way they move. They are more percussive. They have more of this, what is called the power arc, to the way that they orient their hands outward. Then there is yin gesturing, which generally have palms facing inward. They are more close to the person. They have more of a side-to-side, circular, kind of more collaborative kind of movement, as opposed to actually pushing outward. When you're doing your Z and your Nai, then there's going to be a tendency to also use yang gesturing at the same time. Then when you use your V and your Zhi, then there's going to be a tendency to use yin gesturing at the same time. So as you do yang gesturing, then your yang gesturing is going to have more of a natural state quality to it because of the fact that this maneuver is more aligned with Z and Nai. And since Z and Nai are your momentum powers, then you are going to be in your element doing yang gesturing. Alternatively, when you do yin gesturing, this has to do with your modulation powers of V and Zhi. And so your yin gesturing is going to have more of an altered state quality to it. You also have a unique form of gesturing known as choppy hands, which combines both the yin and the yang gesturing together. But it's unique to you as a Zyy'nai because of the fact that you have source Z over tandem Nai, which causes your momentum in your gesturing, and you have V over Zhai, which causes modulation in your gesturing. All mojos have their own form of yang and yin gesturing, but they also have their own unique form of gesturing that is 100% unique to their configuration. For you as a Zyy'nai, that's your choppy hands. As a directive mojo, you're also going to have natural boundary setting, and this is because the directive powers they're better at setting boundaries because of the fact that they are getting flags forward, they're moving in certain directions, and that energy comes with a more of a boundary setting quality to them. And so because of the fact that you have these directive powers as your momentum powers, and that means the boundary setting is going to be a momentum maneuver for you, and so it's natural state. The adaptive powers are more approachable, and this is because the tower powers as well as stimulus register powers, they are naturally awaiting something. They're reactive in nature. So for example, the tower is waiting to be impacted in some way, and then you have the stimulus registers, which are actually waiting to drink in stimulus, and so they're expecting that, which gives them a approachable quality to them. But because of the fact that your adaptive powers are modulation, then approachability is going to be altered state for you. You are also an objective mojo, and so this means you are going to have the unhooded eyes of an objective mojo. This means your eyes are going to have a certain natural orientation toward them. They're going to have a more forward out orientation to them. This has nothing to do with the literal size of your eyes or anything like that. You can have small eyes and have them still be unhooded. You can have massive eyes and still have hooded eyes. So that doesn't matter. But either way for you, your eyes as an objective mojo are going to have the more out, the more forward pressed up against the glass quality of the objective mojos, something that they get with their unhooded eyes. As a Zyy'nai, you also have a discernment power as your source power, meaning you are a discernment lead mojo. This will affect the way that your face looks. Your Z is going to cause your neutralizing to overtake your emotive expressioning, since Z is your strongest power, and this neutralizing is also going to overtake your perceptions. It's going to kind of go into your eyes. Because of this, the discernment, the logic-based discernment of Z is actually overtaking almost your entire face with just your values-based power localized in the mouth. So kind of giving you this full-faced golden sheen mask sort of quality. This gives you what is known as the unifield face. Specifically unifield face, meaning that it has kind of the complete, the unified quality to it. This would be as opposed to the lead perceivers, which have a bifield face because of the fact that their perception is over the discernment. Then their face zones are kind of partitioned in with perception and discernment. But the lead discerners don't have that. The discernment kind of overtakes the entire face, and having the logic-based discernment over the interpretive perception gives you the moxie-minded, cunning look. Also, because of the fact that you're a lead discerner, your mouth is going to pop first, and your eyes pop second. Think of this in the way that you would look at an artistic work of some kind, like a painting. Generally, if the painter knows what they're doing, then they'll compose the painting in such a way where something will pop first on the canvas, and then your eyes will kind of start to drift to other places in a certain order. Well, the energy that you give off as the mojo that you are naturally works this way as well. And being a Zyy'nai, then the energy of your discernment power causes your mouth to actually pop first, and your eyes, your perception, to pop second. Now in your discernment corridor, Z is your logic-based discernment, and Zhai is your values-based discernment. Because of the fact that you are a logic-based mojo, your Z discernment is over your Zhai. This means that the neutralizing of emotive expression that you're getting from doing your Z is going to be what is natural state for you. So it's going to be the most easy and effortless. Also, the emotive expressioning that your Zhai is doing is going to mainly be localized in the mouth region, and it's not going to be able to readily past the midline of the face. The midline is about right here, under the nose, kind of, and just under the cheekbones. So when you do a mode of expressioning with Zyy'nai, then it's going to be altered state for you. It won't be as comfortable, and there will also be kind of an inherent desire to cool your face again. There are also vocal cues that you give off as a Zyy'nai, and the midline is actually not something that's just on the face, but the midline is something that can also be heard in the voice. And the point spectrum of joyous to mournful, that's also has a tonal quality that can be heard in the voice. But since you're a Zyy'nai and the Zhy is polar, so since the Zhy is polar, then the sound, the kind of deadpanning of Z is what's actually going to take lead in your tonality, and the kind of warming furnace of Zhy will be an intermittent sound that kind of warms up, kind of boils up as you get more fired up. Now let's get into third gear cues. Third gear, we're getting more tacit here, so we're going to be taking in a lot of information at the same time. You take in a conflagration of cues all at once. As you look at samples of Zyy'nai, you're beginning to get a taste of Zyy'nai-ness as a whole. Anytime you look at a still frame of Zyy'nai, you're seeing a conflagration of cues all happening at the same time. But all of these cues are going to be unique to the Zyy'nai and the Zyy'nai only. And over time, you'll start to get used to seeing this specific configuration only. Then when you see a Zyy'nai doing whatever kind of maneuver they're doing, you won't necessarily need to get into looking at what their eyes are specifically doing or what their gestures are doing. You'll be able to look at them and just take them in as a whole and just be like, that's a Zyy'nai, as the totality of their cues jumps out at you. So all of the cues that we went over in first gear and second gear are combined in third gear. But there's also the aspects it all has, which comes from the momentum powers of Z and Nai. Z gives off the distinct signal of bracing, and that's a signal that you're going to be giving off all of the time. It's a question of how much of that bracing is infused with the dissatisfaction of your Nai, and how much of these signals are being modulated by the amped and buoyancy of your V and Zhy. A good way to start seeing distinct signals is to look at lots of other Zyy'nai, and you'll start to see that even though a lot of them might be very different from you in a lot of ways by having different riffs, game style, they actually do have the same cues that you do. So just keep drinking in mojos of your own kind, and you'll learn more about how your own soul is designed. A useful way to go about that is to compare and contrast your mojo also to similar mojos, which for you as a Zyy'nai would be the Zyy'bai and the Nai Z. So as you see cues that are similar to your own but not quite the same, it'll help you distinguish your own energy from others. From there, you can also take still pictures of mojos that you're studying and build them up into a collage book. It's very rewarding to yourself to have a book full of pictures of your mojo, and you can see your mojo doing all kinds of cool things, and you can see the vast range of yourself. And you begin to really geek out on how cool you are as a human. You are a magnificent creature, and you're part of a species that has these in them. And as you study the Zyy'nai, you start to see that the tribe was built to have these logic pilots, and without them, we would all be lost. So you're super important, and when you start to see the Zyy'nai in general are super important to the human species, then you can start to see in yourself that as an individual Zyy'nai, you are part of this epic importance, and you most certainly are. So know yourself, grow yourself, save the world.